Life is the standard for rights and proper survival, the purpose. In this video, I'm going to be teaching you how rights are objective. They're not subjectively made fanciful inventions of arbitrary monkeys, but indeed objective facts in reality that you and anyone else can discover. Rights don't come from God, legality, or other people. Life, and more specifically proper survival, is the basis for all individual rights, and there are only rights of the individual. There are no collective or group rights. Life is the standard which allows proper survival, and in turn is the purpose of life. Life is an objective fact which we derive from the self-evident axiom that we are conscious in objective reality. So an axiom is a fundamental self-evident truth that is irreducible. You can't get behind it, you can't argue against it. Any argument against it is self-defeating, self-refuting. Any attempt to dismiss existence or consciousness, and you must admit that you are conscious and you're in existence. You can't get around those. So life, well, we are undeniably aware that we are living, we are life, we exist, and we know it. It's inconsequential if you believe in subjective, intrinsic, or objective values, or any other type of values, it doesn't matter. Because if you're dead, all arguments are out the window. See ya. If you are not alive, you cannot value anything. Thus, proper survival is the fundamental objective value. Fundamental because all other values rest upon this foundational fundamental value. Because anything else, any other valuation, from liking bananas to sex, are impossible unless you're alive. And proper survival objectively feels good. So I'm going to say the definition for good right at the end. Life itself isn't intrinsically valuable. It's only valuable because it can feel worth living when done correctly, not subjectively according to disastrous emotional whims, but objectively according to reason. So proper survival, I will define now. This video is going to be full of a lot of definitions. I love making definitions. It is so fun because that's when you get into objective concepts. Because, well, what is a word? What is a definition? A word is just a visual or auditory symbol that represents the concept. And the concept is something objective in reality that is perceptual, or that is abstracted away from some kind of perceptual foundation. And all concepts work in a hierarchy to make a very, very complex, big topic, very, very small. Table, human body, shirt, are all perceptual concepts or concretes. But when you get things like friendship, sovereignty, pride, capitalism, humility, servitude, well, you can't just point to those things like you can to rock, tree, dog. Those things are hierarchically distant. Those concepts are far away from perceptual reality, so you need to use a process of reduction to bring it back down to perceptual reality. You have to link it all in a chain, and that's what we're doing here. What is a definition? It's a concise statement explaining the instances that it subsumes, all the individual concrete and specific identity of what that concept represents. That is what a definition is. It needs to be simple, economic, and precise. Proper survival is 1, the freedom to consciously live, rationally pursue, and achieve happiness and health. 2, it's humanity's fundamental objective value. 3, the purpose of human life. And 4, harmony between man's mind and body. So I'll go over those again. Proper survival is 1, the freedom to consciously live. So you aren't properly surviving if you're not free. If you're living in some kind of totalitarian state or in a concentration camp, in hell, you're not properly surviving. It's not proper survival. Life isn't worth living then, because to be happy requires a process of freely selecting and experiencing your values. If you cannot do that, you cannot properly survive. And obviously it requires rationality, reason to select objective values to achieve that happiness and health. So in this philosophy, everything is interconnected. It's an integrated whole. So to fully grasp even just what I'm talking about here with proper survival, impossible to fully understand unless you have the totality of everything else. Because you need to understand, well, what do I mean by health? What do I mean by happiness? What's it mean to be rational? What does that mean? What is it? I know you have a rough implicit idea, but what's it actually mean? Like explicitly, do you understand that concept? What about freedom? What's that mean? Consciously, life. Or you got to break down each one of these individual concepts to understand. And so it's such a big thing, and it takes time. You have to be patient. You can't just dismiss something because you disagree with it ostensibly on the surface. This is an integrated whole. It's like if someone said, I had a great design for a car, and they just showed you the wheel. Oh, I'm just getting started. This is just part of it. And you say, well, what's a wheel going to do if you'd never heard of a car, obviously? Well, what is this wheel? What am I meant to do? Sit on it? No, it's going to be part of a car, and there'll be a frame and a chassis. Oh, well, I can't see those things. How is this going to work? A car? Stupid. I'll stick to my horse, thank you very much. You need to have the big picture, right? The wheel, the tires, the drive shaft, the steering wheel, the windscreen, the engine, the petrol, all these components fit together to make something very, very useful in practical reality. And that's what this is, except this is 100,000 times more practical than a car, because it's what allowed Henry Ford to make the car. It's what makes cars. Reason and rationality, and people pursuing their happiness and being able to be free enough to actually do that, and having their rights respected enough to be able to do what they want and create things that are objectively valuable for themselves and the rest of humankind. Number 2, humanity's fundamental objective value. I explained that earlier. It's the purpose of human life, because that is the purpose, to live and be happy. Because there's no point living for 1,000 years, 10 billion years, if you're not happy. That's torture. That's an anti-value then. It's not something worth experiencing or living for. Life only has value when you are pursuing and achieving happiness. If you can't pursue and achieve happiness, well, then you do whatever you can. You fight for that freedom to be able to do that, or you die in the process. Because living a life where you're not free to rationally pursue and achieve happiness and health, life isn't worth living. And I've also specifically stated to consciously live, to be actually present and aware, not have some kind of AI chip in your head, or a drugged out, zombified bum on the streets, or just an average Joe who doesn't care about topics like this. I don't think they're really living, because they're not being conscious. They're not actually self-aware. And I've got a definition of consciousness in here a little bit later. The next definition I've got, well, what is happiness? What is happiness? Because we need to understand this, because proper survival is all about happiness, and that's where rights come from. Well, hold on, are we talking about rights here? Are we talking about consciousness? Are we talking about proper survival? Are we talking about happiness? Are we talking about value, health? Well, they're all interconnected. You need to understand all of them. You need to know how all the components of the car fit together and work to be able to use the car. To understand rights and to use them in reality, you need to understand all of it. So happiness, and to actually be happy, you need to understand the definition of happiness. What is it? 1, a non-contradictory state of joy. So non-contradictory state of joy experienced by freely choosing and achieving values. So you need to freely choose and achieve your values. That's why a plant can't be happy, or a tree, the vegetables, they don't move, they don't require any action to be taken by a conscious agent to achieve happiness, because they don't do anything. It's like if the government was making all your choices for you, it's impossible to be happy, because you're not acting. You'd just lose consciousness. You'd become a vegetable. For more detail on that, there's a very good channel of objectivist philosopher called Charles Chu, and he explains that in more detail, and I think that's worth investigating. If you resonate with this topic and you enjoy, recommend checking his work out. A non-contradictory state of joy, because someone might say, oh, you could just take heroin and be happy. It's creating a contradiction because it is inimical to your life. And you have to think long range with happiness. There might be a short-term gain of euphoria, but inevitably, for certain, you're going to end up as a degenerate bum, a filthy slob living on the streets, shitting your pants and foaming at the mouth, sleeping on cardboard, reeking of your own piss. That is a total contradiction. That is not happiness. And you can reason and understand how cheating or stealing or anything like that is going to create a contradictory state of happiness. It's not true happiness. Happiness comes from not being in contradiction. So exercising in a way where you don't injure yourself, so you feel good, you feel fit and healthy. Non-contradiction there. Following and pursuing your values that make you objectively feel good, that are beneficial for your proper survival, continuing your life, your health, your happiness. That doesn't cause contradiction. Like eating junk food, oh, that feels great. Drinking alcohol excessively or smoking cigarettes, oh, that makes me happy. Well, it's creating a contradiction, so it's not proper happiness. It's only some kind of chemical reaction and base pleasure. It's not true happiness. And yes, that can be argued because I've done those things in the past, and sure, I felt pleasure from doing those things, but I can objectively say I am happier, 100%, not drinking alcohol, not smoking cigarettes, not smoking weed, or doing any other kind of drugs. I am happier now than when I did all those things. Do I regret doing those things? No, because I needed to do that to understand. Number 4 was harmony between man's mind and body. It's basically just a reiteration of what I've said earlier here. To have happiness, which is the psychological element of oneself, and body, which is health. It's having them both work in conjunction harmoniously. Oh, I just realized I skipped back to proper survival when I was at happiness, but that's okay. That could go for some more explanation. So back to happiness. Number 2, the second definition was the feeling that life is worth living and worth the effort to continue. If you've ever been happy and you've felt that feeling, you should be resonating with that right now, because when I had that realization and I came up with that definition, I was like, okay, that clicked. And I will give credit where credit is due. The number 1 statement of a non-contradictory state of joy, credit goes to Ayn Rand for that. And then I added on the end, experienced by freely choosing and achieving values. She didn't put that in her definition, but she's talked about that in her other work. Number 2, the feeling that life is worth living. Right? You know, that's what happiness is. Where you're like, damn, life is worth living. And it's worth the effort to continue. Because you know, when you don't feel like that, and I've definitely felt like that, that happens, and I'm sure you probably have too, where you go, damn, I'm depressed, like life isn't worth the effort to continue. Shit, I don't want my life to feel like this because it feels like crap and I don't want to continue. I need to do something to change. Otherwise, I'm going to go bye-bye. I got to do something. And then when you do something and you get that feeling again, it's like, this is what life is about. Happiness, continuing. What is value? Got 2 definitions here. Value is that which one acts to gain or keep. Again, that's coming from Ayn Rand, who is the creator of the philosophy of Objectivism, where I'm getting a lot of this information from, and I'm just tweaking here and there, putting my little unique twists on it, but keeping the base fundamentals intact. If you go to work, it's because you want to get money, because that's a value to you, because you can buy food or buy whatever else you want. And so you're acting to gain or keep those values. If you've got a fit body, you are valuing that because you're acting to keep it, etc. You have value, then you have objective values as well, because sometimes people value heroin or smoking or things that are inimical, so hostile to their life and which are not beneficial for them. But that's in essence what a value is. Or number 2, you can say that a value is the importance, usefulness, or worth of something to someone. Because all value requires a valuer. Nothing is intrinsically valuable. Gold isn't intrinsically valuable. Life isn't intrinsically valuable. Like nothing is valuable in of itself without a valuer to evaluate its value. Because you say, oh, something is like gold is valuable. To whom and for what? You always need to ask that question. So that's how values become objective. So it's that interconnection between something living, that's conscious, humanity, I've got a definition for that coming soon, and an aspect of reality, of the external. So you have the internal world connecting to the external world. It's not one or the other, it's the interconnection of both those facts. What is health? An optimal bodily state of non-contradictory function. That's what health is. So it's like it's not very healthy if you are a huge bodybuilder and you've got these huge, big, strong muscles, but you can't move and you can't even flex your arms and you can't move. Well, that's a contradictory state of function, isn't it? Moving on to consciousness. And I've got this here because remembering in the definition proper survival, I've said proper survival, number one, is the freedom to consciously live, rationally pursue and achieve happiness and health. And I hope as I go on with these definitions and come back to the previous ones, so when I'm going forward and coming back, you're like, oh, the first time he said that, I didn't quite get it. Now he's gone through these other definitions. Oh, I'm starting to get it more. That's what should be happening. So consciousness is, number one, awareness of awareness. And I'll explain that a bit more in a moment. Number two is these are actually all my definitions. I've come up with these, which I'm very proud of. Number two is the awareness and recognition of the continuity of oneself, thoughts, feelings, senses, and actions in an external world. Oh, I love that definition. It's so good, and I'll explain that more in a moment. And number three is total clarity of the present moment. So consciousness, again, is awareness of awareness. What do I mean when I say that? And what really helps me to understand this definition, help understand consciousness, is to look into dreams. Think about right now compared to when you're dreaming. So when you're dreaming, you have awareness. You're actually aware, but you're not conscious because you're not aware that you're aware. You're not lucid. Right now, you can be considered lucid. You're fully conscious. When I recall when I'm dreaming, there might be strange things happening. I'm doing stuff. There's an external world. Things are happening. But in those brief moments of lucidity, I don't become lucid in my dreams or conscious very often, but when I do, it's like, oh, I'm in a dream. Now I'm aware that I'm aware, right? It's like I'm awake now. I'm here. I'm realizing what's going on. I've got that total clarity of the present moment. When you're just dreaming normally, there's not total clarity of the present moment. It's just this fogged out, basic level of awareness. It's just an awareness of things happening. There's no proper awareness of a self. There is not that continuity because right now we've got the awareness and not just the awareness, but the recognition, like the identification of the continuity of oneself. Right now I'm doing this, before I had dinner, before that I was at the cafe, before that I was in a different country. I can remember my whole life. There's a whole continuity. In a dream, you just, boom, you're here in this magical mountain. How did you get there? No idea. Things are just happening. And then boom, you're in a totally different scene, flying in a spaceship across a giant washing machine. How did that happen? The continuity is broken, right? But when you're conscious here, there's a continuity, a continuation. You live all day, you go to sleep, you wake up again. Oh, there's this continuity, a continuation of yourself, all your thoughts, your feelings, your senses, right? And actions in an external world. Whether you're in a dream or real life or even some other dimensions, DMT, tripping on mushrooms, whatever, there's still always yourself and then some external world. If it looks like this or if it looks like geometric patterns and DMT tripping, whatever it looks like, there's an external world and there's you. So consciousness is the recognition of yourself in some kind of world. By his nature, to properly survive, man must use his reasoning mind. So that wasn't a definition, that was just a line there. Because we had quite a lot of definitions just then. We went over proper survival, happiness, value, health, and consciousness. And then I've said, by mankind or humanity's nature, we require our faculty of reason to survive. I'll elaborate on that because we're not animals, we're not reflexive creatures. Even the most primitive indigenous people, the Aboriginals, they still require reason. Even they require reason to operate because they have to say, well, which plants can we eat? Which ones are going to poison us? How do we find water? What do we do with this guano after we get it? Do we cook it? Do we just eat it raw? So they still need to use reason. Animals don't use reason. They're just reflexive creatures. I won't even say instincts. That's another interesting conversation. Because like instincts denotes something that is inbuilt, whereas reflexive is, well, reflexive. I haven't got a definition of reflexive. I should come up with that. But we won't stay on that point for too long. My next definition is for, well, what is mankind? What is man? Humanity, humans. What is that definition? And I'm not talking about a legal definition, I'm talking about an objective concept, not a legal definition. Because if you get into the legal definition of human, well, that could be problematic. And I'm also not using a definition that means basically animal, an ape of the Homo sapiens species. No, I disagree with that. That would be a whole nother video on why, but I'm just going to share my definition. Actually, no, I'll share Ayn Rand's definition is a rational animal, or the rational animal. And I totally disagree with that, not with the rational part, but animal. We are not animals, we are conceptual beings. We are the distinction between our faculty of conception, and you could go and elaborate on that with imagination and other abilities we have in comparison to animals, is so vastly different. You cannot put us in the same categories as animals. We are not animals. Now, even if most people act like animals, that is not principally what humanity is. Of course, we have the ability and capacity, and most people do act like animals, but that's not their nature, their true nature. So, my definition is humanity is a rational, conceptual, intelligent, and self-aware species of individual beings. So very careful to say individual there. We are not a hive-minded species like bees or ants or what the cabal is trying to turn us into, these hive-minded AI zombies for all intents and purposes and appearances. It looks like that's what they're trying to do. That's not what we are. We have the capacity for reason, for rationality. Even full idiots on the streets or wherever they are still use reason to some extent. Just because people don't use it in totality doesn't mean that by their nature they aren't a rational being. It's that they are a rational being who is choosing volitionally to be irrational, to use faith, right? Which faith is just synonymous with irrationality. We are conceptual and intelligent, and even the dumbest human is the dumbest human smarter than the smartest animal? Yeah, still even the dumbest human that's not been shot through the head and totally mentally retarded or something is still going to be smarter than the smartest animal. So in that term, intelligent. And even if people choose to be dumb, it's a choice. People have the capacity for intelligence. What is intelligence? Well, I've got a 2-hour video about what is intelligence, and that is well worth your time to watch. I highly recommend that, because people have no idea what intelligence is, and they start saying things like AI. Oh, artificial intelligence is actually intelligence. No, it's not, and it won't be. If it does, it won't be AI, it would be something completely different. And it does not look like we're going to have the technological capacity for that for a long, long time. Long term. And even, I wonder if that's possible at all. I don't know. But if the mainstream is constantly harping on about the dangers of AI, then it makes me think, well, no, it's not possible. It's just a scapegoat or a patsy. Yeah, something to blame. That's a different topic. Let's get back on track here. See, everything's interconnected. You can connect everything to everything, almost. I don't know how I'd connect this to gardening. Oh, well, if that's what you objectively value, and that was going to contribute to your proper survival, yeah, well, gardening is in your interest. There you go. To ensure proper survival, remembering happiness and health, freedom to pursue values, man must exercise reason and respect others' rights. Now, We're at rights. What are rights? Do you know off the top of your head what rights are? I think it's valuable to remember these two technical definitions off the top of your head. So I'm not even going to look at what I've written. Oh, make sure no peeking. So rights, this is Ayn Rand's definition, the first one. Rights are conditions of existence necessary for proper survival. So that's what they are. If we don't have our rights respected, we cannot properly survive. That's why they're objective. Number two is the ability to perform any action provided it does not cause imposition. So I got half of that definition from Mark Passio, so credit goes to him for that. I've also got a playlist on my channel with Mark Passio's work talking about objective morality. He doesn't go into this kind of depth, but he's definitely worth listening to, and I highly recommend his work. He says the ability to perform any action provided it does not cause harm, but I've replaced that with cause imposition because it is wider and more specific concomitantly, simultaneously. It does both. How? Well, what is imposition? Imposition is the initiation of force or fraud, and fraud is just intellectual force, psychological control, deceit, manipulation. Another specific word that it is the initiation, because you do have the right to cause harm if it's in self-defense, right? So if you just left your definition at the right to perform any action provided it does not cause harm, you just violated someone's rights when you caused harm to them. After they punched you in the head, you punched them back or you stopped them, whatever happened, right? But you do have the right to do that because you do have the right to self-defense because that's retaliatory action. There's a whole context here that I'm not including because it would take a long time to explain that. The escalation of force and that ladder. Imposition is about initiation. You have the right to perform any action provided it does not cause imposition. So you don't have the right, let's look at the government. They don't have the right to do what they're doing because they are using fraud. They're using intellectual force in the form of deception. So it's changing the behavior of what people are doing because they're using a trick. If the trick was absent when it comes to legality or central banks and money, how the currency works, probably the biggest one is about, the money, the legality, the legitimacy of authority, those ideas of centralization and monopolies, those ideas are an imposition. They're causing imposition, which they do not have the right to do because they're not telling the truth. They're using deception. They're not telling the truth in totality. It's mixed in with a whole bunch of lies, and you don't have the right to do that. I'm just going to list some of our basic rights so you have a general understanding of that. You have the right to private property because it's a necessity for proper survival. And if you can't survive, well, arguments are out of the question because you can't argue when you're dead. You have the right to self-defense, which is retaliation. You have the right of bodily autonomy, what you do with your body, so no one has the right to inject poison into you or to rape you or something like that. You don't have the right to do. You have the right to travel. We have the right to travel freely, unless it's across someone's private property and they don't want you to travel on their private property. We have the right to trade. So we have the right to trade with whoever we want, with whatever currency or whatever valuation we want. We have that right. We have the right to assemble, the right to free speech, the right of security, the right to privacy, the right of association, and the right to discriminate. We absolutely have that right to discriminate. However we see fit. If you have a business and you don't want whatever kind of people coming into a business, that is absolutely your right. No one can tell you otherwise. Is it in your best business interest to discriminate against people who are over 6 foot tall? It's like, well, why would you discriminate against them? But if you don't want 6 foot tall people coming into your business because it makes you feel uncomfortable, whatever silly reason, okay, it's your right, it's your business, it's your private property. You can discriminate against who you want. If you don't want people coming in who are wearing masks, you say, no, I discriminate, I don't want that kind of person, so I'm using the word person now, not man, to come into my shop. We have the right to discriminate. There's a whole discussion and context behind that, which would go on for ages, but I'm going to leave it at that. All these individual points you can make an hour video about, going to heaps of detail. It's a full integrated whole. Some rights you don't have that people think they actually have. The right to vote. You don't have the right to vote because what is voting doing? It is your active supporting of a terrorist organization, because Technically, objectively, that is what a government is. It is a terrorist organization that only rules by force, by imposition. They're not a proper business. They're not a proper legitimate body. They're a bunch of psychopaths who say, hey, we're going to control you using force, using violence, and we're going to initiate it. We're going to steal from you and call it taxation, and then we're going to arm a whole gang. We're going to make all the rules. We're going to control as much property, deceptively label it as the public, but it's actually private. There's no public property. What nonsense. It's all private property. Their private property for whoever is controlling the government and who owns that essentially. Oh, this is getting into a legal conversation now about what's going on with the cabal and controlling government. Let's just keep it to rights. But you absolutely do not have the right to vote, because that is totally, it's not just immoral, but it is heinously evil system. No, there should be no government, because there should be no rulers, because there should be no one who has more rights than you do, because we all have equal rights. That's the only equality there actually is. There's no equality anywhere else, and you shouldn't seek equality anywhere else, because that is evil. There should only be equality of rights. Your right to life, your right to proper survival, your right to your rights. That's it. No equality of pay, no equality of treatment or opportunity. No, you can't do that. That's immoral, that's wrong, for reasons that are explained elsewhere. It's hard because it's like everything I say needs justification to understand, especially if you haven't done any research into these topics. You go, well, what do you mean equality of opportunity? I heard somewhere on Channel 7 News, on the mainstream media, say equality of opportunity is good, and I heard an egalitarian or a libertarian or someone else say that's a good thing. What's this guy talking about? He says that's not good, that's evil. Yes, I have reasons for everything I say. And it's all backed up by 10,000 words behind it. I can't speak forever. Otherwise this video would just go on for too long, all right? I'm not gonna say just trust me, because don't just trust me. You have to trust your rational mind, but spend the time, do the research on all these things. Justify, dive in to each of those parts that I'm saying, especially those things you disagree with, because whoever you are right now, I can almost guarantee for a certain fact that you may agree with 99% of this, but there's probably 1% you don't agree with. And it's probably not that I'm wrong, most likely not. It's that you just don't know enough to understand how what I'm saying is correct yet. But I may be mistaken, but I don't think I'm mistaken about anything so far. Continuing, you don't have the right to pay tax, you don't have the right to pay fines, because again, that's just contributing to a terrorist organization. But I do understand if you're under duress and you are trying to preserve your life, you're acting in a form of self-preservation to protect your welfare and your interests, because you don't want to get attacked by armed goons. So yes, you don't have the right, well, to vote. No one's actually forcing you to vote. With tax, yes, I can understand people get terrified and they say, okay, if I don't pay this tax, I'm gonna get killed, or worse, locked in a cell and tortured for decades. Okay, all right, I'll pay the tax, I'll pay the fines. Okay, even though there are remedies and ways using trusts and negative vehement, other videos I've spoken about and other people talk about, to not commit those crimes, because essentially you are committing a crime when you pay fines and you pay tax. You're committing a crime. You don't have the right to do that. And especially when you're voting, because no one's making you vote. No one's pointing a gun at you and saying you need to vote. And the whole, well, I hope if you're up to this, my work, and you're studying this type of deep fundamental content, you understand by this point that voting is ridiculous. If you don't understand that, I have a full series about how a government should really work and why a government can never work and what to do instead. You should go watch those videos, because I go into a whole lot of depth. Why should one respect others' right to life and proper survival? Why should they do it? Well, because of morality and their own selfish interest in proper survival. So you want to be extremely selfish. You want to be rationally egoic. Not egotistical, egoic. Put your self-interests first. You want to be selfish, selfish, selfish. And people, oh, that is such a misunderstood concept. People have literally inverted the concept of selfish and selfless. People will look at people who are being toxic, they're being arrogant, they're being inconsiderate, thoughtless, rude, and they will say, they're selfish, they're self-centered. No, no. They are being selfless. They have forgotten their self. They're totally not even present. It's just a mindless program that's running. They're less of their self. They are selfless. Because someone who is selfish puts their interests and needs first. And it is in your interests to be considerate, to be polite, to be respectful, to look after other people, and to not make enemies. Because when you make enemies, they're going to retaliate against you, and it's going to affect your life. So it's in your rational self-interest to act morally, to respect others' rights, to live in peace, and to have the best chance of properly surviving, of achieving happiness, which is the ultimate fundamental objective value, proper survival of health and happiness. That's what life is about. That is the purpose. Though you can also have your, I wouldn't call them subjective purposes, I'm still working on a definition. So say this is my purpose, making content like this, but someone else's it might be to build a free energy device or create a sociologic system of helping disabled people or something else, right? And that's their ulterior or secondary purpose. Maybe you call it a secondary, primary and a secondary purpose. I'll have to think on that one more. I need to pour more thought into that topic. What is morality? Morality, same thing as ethics, both used synonymously. Number one, morality is a fundamental code of values which guide all action, essential for proper survival, whilst prohibiting imposition to others' proper survival. So I'll read that again because I know that's a mouthful, a lot to take in. A fundamental code of values, right? So I'm not even going to go into the values of this because the video would get too long, but it's values like reason. Reason is the prime, the value and virtue, and honesty, integrity, sovereignty, independence, productiveness. These values and virtues, that's what morality is about. A fundamental code of doing those things which guide all your actions. Every single action you take is put through that moral filter. Is this good for me? Is this good for other people? Is this going to hurt me? Is this going to hurt other people? All your actions. All your actions. That's why this is so important. It's like the most important topic. So important. Number two is the strict adherence of respecting others' rights for practical self-interest. So it's just a secondary definition, just restating above in a slightly different way. You respect others' rights because it's good for you. It's good for you to respect others' rights. So number three, and there's 6 definitions here I've got for morality. Number 3 is morality or ethics is a system of reason to peacefully guide all human choices to decrease the likelihood of creating enemies. Or you could just say a system of reason to peacefully guide all human choices. But I really do like that part in the end because that's what morality is for, about not creating enemies, to act reasonably and peacefully. So it's a system to guide all choices, all your actions. Number 4 is behavior essential for preventing retaliatory action. That's what morality is. It's behavior for preventing retaliatory action. Because if you act morally, it's impossible for someone to retaliate against you because you haven't initiated any force, whether physical or intellectual in the form of violence or fraud. You haven't initiated that against anyone, so it's impossible for someone to retaliate against you. The only way they can cause harm to you is to initiate, right? So morality is a system of preventing, in totality, any kind of retaliatory action. That'll take you a while to understand because you'll need to have lots of different examples to understand what about in war? What about this situation, And once you think it through, you go, oh, okay, you're always responding. When you're moral, you only ever retaliate. Sure, you can be violent, you can kill people, you can bomb them, do all that kind of stuff, go to war, but it's only in retaliation to protect your proper survival and those people you objectively value, your families and your friends and the other people in your country or the landmass where you live. Then, okay, you have the right to fight and kill other people if they're evil, but only in retaliation, never to initiate. That's what evil does. The evil initiates, good retaliates, and you have to retaliate because there's always some evil bastard somewhere, sometime, initiating evil. And imposition. Morality is behavior essential for preventing retaliatory action. I hope you understand that one. Because, yeah, it's impossible for anyone to retaliate against you. Very clear on that. When you're being moral. Because when you're being moral, you're not causing any kind of imposition. You're not the initiator. Number 5 is the means to protect oneself from retaliation. So it's a reframing of what I said above. By providing a predictable, rational framework of human interaction. That's what it means to be moral. Once you're moral and you do not cause imposition, where you do not initiate any physical or intellectual force, what happens then is everything becomes predictable. You can predict that no one is going to retaliate against you and steal your stuff or hurt you in response to something you've done. Sure, people might still do that, but they'll be the initiators. So that is the guarantee, the predictability of that rational framework of morality for guiding human interaction. Number 6 is the method of equitably treating others as one wishes to be treated, void of hypocrisy and contradiction. So essentially, that's the golden rule of equity that I have put into morality. I've coined the term the golden rule of equity, which means to treat others as one wishes to be treated. So that's what morality is, the method of equitably treating others as one wishes to be treated, void, you could say devoid, of hypocrisy and contradiction. So it's not being a hypocrite, not causing contradiction in yourself. You look at all the politicians and bankers and police, they're hypocrites. They're always causing contradiction. They're treating other people in ways they do not want to be treated. And they're creating lots and lots of enemies. Not good, not good. Not for the long run, long term, long range. People who study the cabal and the nature of the evil people who currently run and control the world, they see the cabal and they go, wow, they're big picture. And the cabal, of course, they put their head up their ass and they think they're in a totally different world, but they literally can only see this far in front of them. They think they're thinking big picture, long range. Oh yes, we're going to control all the land and totally dominate humanity and have all the money, have all the power. But I won't go into a full explanation right now, but they are thinking such tiny, small, infinitesimally small in comparison to the big picture of allowing humans to be free and to live according to their nature, of what is possible, of how much better from the callow king to the Pope to me and you. The callow king is just a term I've coined for the head of the cabal, whoever is at the head of the cabal, and the cabal is just the evil forces that work in secret, semi-secret, conspiratorial coteries behind the scenes. Callow king, that translates basically into the child king, king of children. Yeah, I love that. That's what the callow king means, because callow is a synonym for unfledged. So like a bird, a little tiny baby bird that hasn't got its feathers yet, that it's a baby, it's immature, hasn't grown up yet. And so the callow king is only king of those intellectual babies. So unfortunately, the majority of people who don't understand this stuff and don't want to care about learning about philosophy, about objectivity, about reality, about morality, they are callow, they are unfledged, or even you can say fledglings, a little baby bird that's just got its feathers and just trying to fly. But still immature, not fully grown, not a mature grown-up adult, still children. And the callow king is only king of children. But he's a child king because he thinks whoever this person is, whatever it is, if it's human, it's alien, or whatever it is, or it could just be the Pope, whoever it is. They're thinking so big, but they're a child, they're a little baby, they're thinking so small and so short range. Oh, but their plans span over thousands of years. But what is the consequences of what they're doing? They're going to be king of a castle and that's it. The whole world will be a total shithole. It'll end up being a world full of AI, automatized bloody zombies. It's like, what good is it to rule that? There's no point. It's absolutely pointless. There's no point to what they're doing. They might get such short-term gain. Oh, I made $10 billion in a year. Yeah, good on you. And look what you've done. You've ruined the world, which is not good for you. If you just earned your money ethically and had just $1 million, you could do 1,000 times more than you can with $10 billion today. Because with freedom, you could allow so much better things to happen. This is such a big topic, and I said I wasn't going to get into it. I think I'll save that for another video, leave you in a bit of suspense, but Yeah, I've really been thinking about this, well, over years, but in the past couple of days, it's really come to my attention, and I've been getting a fuller, more deeper grasp and understanding of that concept that the cabal, the callow king, they think short range and small-minded, and everything they do, even though it seems like it's good for them in the short term, isn't good for them in the long run. It ruins their lives. They don't even understand that. Because, oh yeah, they have all these mansions and these castles and these hotels. Yeah, but they have to fly around by helicopter, because if they go by the streets, well, people are going to yell at them, throw pies at them, or even if people don't recognize them and they do that, they have to drive through slums. They have to see ugly power lines and ugly buildings that they've contributed towards by shifting people's philosophy of not understanding objective aesthetics. They're just making an inferior, suboptimal, disgusting, heinous, revolting world that they still have to live in. Or they're forced to only live in such a tiny, small fraction. They can only go within their safe zones or their luxurious zones, and that's all the freedom they have. Whereas if you allow proper freedom, the whole world would be totally free. You can go everywhere. You've just got so many more options. There's just so much more that you can experience, and it'd just be objectively better compared to it's such tiny thinking. It's tiny, tiny thinking. It's only big thinking from a tiny limited perspective. I'd love to have this discussion or argument with the callow king and see what they have to say. That would be great. So if the callow king's watching this, yeah, feel free to reach out. Be interested to have a discussion and see what your point of view is on this. How good would that be to see what the callow king, the head of the cabal, because really everyone else is just a mindless fool that's just following orders from the police officer to the government official, prime ministers, presidents, to even the central bankers, even the Pope and the religions. They're all just useful idiots to this one person, whatever they are, at the very, very top, because they're the one with the most understanding that is putting all the orders down, because there's a hierarchical system. They're all bitch, slave, sluts to the one above them. And so the one at the very top is going to be the only actual sovereign one who's independently making choices and is master of themselves, or are they even master of themselves? That's very debatable. They don't even know what they're doing, or maybe I'm the one misunderstanding, but I really don't think so at this point, because it's coming clearer and clearer today as every day goes on that what they're doing is objectively not even good for them. It's not good for them. It's not good for anyone. It just ruins everything. That's why understanding this is so fundamental, because you can put it through the filter of everything you see in life. Because even the depth that I'm understanding how rights work like this, and that it's objective and life is the standard and proper survival, even objectivists, even Ayn Rand didn't understand it to this depth that I'm going right now, because the objectivists are kind of like the smartest, dumbest people you'll ever see. They're so smart, so intelligent and switched on with philosophy. But when it comes to real world stuff, it's like they think the Twin Towers was caused by terrorists that weren't the government terrorists. They believe in the legitimacy of government. They believe jabby jabs and VEVs are real. I mean, because they're so infatuated and obsessed with only studying philosophy, they ignore the rest of the real world. Well, it's not that philosophy is not the real world, it absolutely is the real world, but they just neglect and just don't have the capacity to look into all these other things. So they get sucked into all the conspiracy theories that government is good, the conspiracy theory that it wasn't the American government that destroyed 9/11, the conspiracy theory that non-vid 19 was real. It's crazy. They get sucked into it. So they weren't able, Ayn Rand and the other famous objectivists, weren't and aren't still to this day able to apply this level of knowledge to the cabal. Because they say, well, dishonesty is a vice. Honesty is a virtue, because if you're dishonest, it doesn't pay. It costs you more than it divvies out. There's always a price to pay. It always affects you more if you're dishonest, because there's so many lies to keep up with, and it's always going to eventually bite you in the ass. But then I always put this through the filter of, hold on, but the cabal seems to get away with it. The government keeps on raping. The religion keeps on destroying and annihilating and obliterating the minds of billions of people, all under a hypnotic mind-controlled spell And the people running these absolute scams, these private businesses of government, of Christianity, of all these religions, which are basically just private businesses to destroy man and parasitically extract all the value from them, all the workhorse labor and monetary value, just steal, take, just extract while giving nothing of value in return, just giving horseshit, violent poison injected into their minds of faith and humility and collectivism and servitude, just disgusting, life-eating, soul-destroying concepts. And I was like, but they get away with it. They get away with how are they doing this? So this theory that I'm sharing with you right now, I'd keep on saying, well, it's not applicable. It's not working. Here's a concrete example of the most evil people in the world getting away with violating rights. They disregard all human rights and they do what they want. They say, you can't leave your home. You are past 9 p.m. You can't go 5 kilometers past it. You have to wear a mask. You have to do this. You have to do that. You have to pay your tax money. Otherwise we kill you. You have to have a passport. You have to have the license and registration. We're going to build all the roads. You have no say in the matter. It's just all this bullshit. I'm like, but they're getting away with it. Then therefore, how does Ayn Rand's theory on life as a standard, connecting into proper survival, that's why you respect rights, it's for your own selfish, rational interest. How does that make sense if the cabal violates all those principles, that code? They have a code of death, not a code of life, and they get away with it. It seems to be in their interests. Well, it's because they can't get away with it, because all their action is only short-term. They have small, short-term gains, but over the long run, it costs far more than it's worth. I think perhaps I might need to make a full video about that, or if you find it really interesting, I can talk to you in person about it. Facebook chat, calls over Messenger, voice memos. If you're interested, I'm happy. I like talking to people who enjoy my work. I get a lot of value out of it. And yeah, I get a lot of value out of talking to people who enjoy my work, so I'm happy to have conversations for free. That's fine. Or if you'd like to donate, that would be bloody cool. It would be nice to be monetarily rewarded from this work that I do because it's objectively valuable. It's one of the most objectively valuable things. But people don't pay for it. They pay for such other ridiculous garbage and they spend hundreds and thousands and millions of dollars on things which aren't important. That is probably one of the biggest fundamental flaws of humanity, is that people are unable to discern the difference between what is important and what is unimportant. They can't discern the difference and they put their attention and effort into that which is unimportant. Football, gossip, drama, TikTok, Instagram, bullshit, rather than what is important. Philosophy, morality, rights, how to think properly, reason, reduction, deduction, induction, all these things which are so important. Health, money, capitalism, virtues and values and pride and sovereignty and independence, autonomy. People go, oh, that's not important. I don't need that. I can survive okay. Well, that's why you're depressed. That's why you're sick. That's why you're diseased. That's why you're a fucking dumb idiot, to be frank. That's why your mind is full of faith and you have no idea about your direction in life and you've got no purpose. That's why. Because you think it is energetically economical to bow down to authority which dictates what is important and what's not. No, it's not energetically economical to do that. You need to put your effort into what is good for you. You need to learn what is important, what is beneficial for your proper survival. And this is. So if one violates another's rights, they risk retaliation and negative consequences. It's impractical for one's pursuit of proper survival to make enemies. Obviously, I'm not saying it's impossible to violate rights. Rights get violated all the time. But ultimately, it's in everyone's best interests not to violate others' rights, to live in peace, to respect others' rights. So in summary, objective reality, that exists. We measure everything back against that. That is the ultimate arbiter and the final court of appeal. Love those terms. Everything in reality has an identity. Because people go, well, what is all this identity thing? How does that make sense? And I'll tell you just a quick practical example, then I'll come back to this summary. The law of identity, I used it when I saw a magician performing tricks. And so I instantly knew it wasn't magic because of the law of identity. He was doing all these cool magic tricks and it looks so real, it looks so good. You're like, that's not possible. How did he move this rubber band or this $5 note? How did he do that without magic? How did he get that there? But it goes, well, the law of identity. Magic isn't in reality. That'd be super cool. We're not living in Harry Potter world. I know, I'm still waiting for my letter. So unfortunate. But I go, well, that's the law of identity. He's obviously, when he's moving this thing, he's holding it in his hand just in a way where I can't see, and he's moving it so quickly, both his hands, and he's so practiced at this, doing it for 40 years, that you can't see. But I know, because of the law of identity, that it has to be somewhere. What he's moving around and showing where it should be here, but it's not, and it's over here, or this is here, and whatever, he's got the watch here, you thought it was going to be here. If it was here, and now it's here, it has to have got there somewhere, because that's the identity. The identity of a watch isn't that it can teleport magically from here to here. It's that this dude grabbed it and moved it in a way where you couldn't see and then showed it to you. The law of identity. That's just one example of the law of identity. Everything has a nature and has an identity in reality. From the way a magician works to a watch to a carpenter's chisel to the concept of sovereignty and the definition of words. Everything has an identity. In summary, objective reality exists. Everything in reality has an identity. As living beings, we are conscious of ourselves and existence. To live according to our identity as humans, we have a nature, we require rights. That's just our fundamental nature as human beings. That's what we require. Rights, conditions of existence necessary for proper survival. Because if our rights aren't respected, we cannot survive. If we can't survive, well, the whole argument of anything else is dead. It's gone, because you're dead. The purpose of life is proper survival. And also I'll say here, because we are all fundamentally the same beings, intelligent, well, humans, rational, conceptual, intelligent, self-aware species of individual beings. I think, yeah, that's my definition, I remembered it. It's not like the Pope or the callow king can say, I've got more rights because I'm a superior being. No, you're fundamentally the same type of being. You've got access to more knowledge, sure, and you may even be more intelligent, but you're not a fundamentally different species. Even if you were, I'd need to hear a bloody good argument that gives you the right to do what you're doing to everyone else, the right to deceive. We have the right to deceive animals because we are superior to them. That's like with a whole fishing hook. You're deceiving a fish. When you put a net into the water, when you set a trap or you're farming cows and chickens, you're deceiving them. We have the right to deceive them because we are a superior life form. If the callow king was some kind of reptilian or alien that was a superior being in some way, I'd have to hear it explained and then be like, okay, well, maybe you do have a right to enslave humanity and do what you're doing. It'd be a very hard argument to push past because you don't have the right to torture, even though we have the right to deceive in the pursuit of our survival. We don't have the right to torture. It's like you may kill an animal, but say kosher, the way that Jews kill animals, you don't have the right to do that. That's unnecessary, cruel torture. Like, kill the thing as quickly as possible. Put it out of its misery. Especially if it's some kind of industrial farming, use gas or stun it, do whatever you can to make it as humane as possible, to kill the animal in a way where it doesn't know what's happening and it doesn't feel pain. So I didn't even finish my in summary there. The purpose of life is proper survival. Proper survival is the fundamental objective value. Morality is the code which aids in our ability to properly survive. It's in our interests, everyone's interests, from us to the Pope, to bloody Donald Trump. It's in our interests to be moral, to prevent retaliation, which would impede our proper survival. I'm just going to give you the definition of good and then I'll wrap it up. And I'm giving you the definition of good because earlier, if you remember, I said proper survival is the fundamental objective value because all other values are impossible without life, being alive, and proper survival, happiness and health, freedom to pursue all your values, objectively feels good. What do you mean good? What's good? Yes, I understand you implicitly know what good is, but what about a more explicit definition? So I came up with this first definition because I've got 6 different points here. I'm still working on it, but this is what I've got for number 1. Good is action and resulting pleasure existing on a continuum from satisfying to orgasmic, measured by the value it adds to one's proper survival. It's good that you can see my face right now because I've got the light on my camera. It's like, is that orgasmic? Does that give you a whole lot of joy? Well, no, but it's satisfying, right? So the continuum there to actually ejaculation or orgasm, that's orgasmic. Oh, that is so good. That's like, yeah, was that good? Yeah, that was good. Like that's, orgasmically good. So it's on that scale, that continuum, and then you've got all in between. Number 2 is a relationship between a valuer and value, which is wanted. Number 3 is that which is desirable. Yep, that's good. I want that. Put that table over there. That's good. It's desirable to have that. That which supports and is beneficial for proper survival, it's good to eat that healthy food. It's good to exercise because that's benefiting your proper survival. That which is morally permissible is number 5. Yes, it's good. It's good to do that. It's morally permissible. It's moral to do that. Number 6 is aspects of reality that have objective value to man. Okay, I'm not going to go into more detail about that because I've spoken for enough right now. I hope you enjoyed a whole bunch of those definitions and you have a lot more clarity around what we discussed. Quickly, I'll just go over the definitions we spoke about were proper survival, which is the freedom to consciously live, rationally pursue, and achieve happiness and health. Happiness, a non-contradictory state of joy experienced by freely choosing and achieving values. Value, that which one acts to gain or keep. Health, optimal bodily state of non-contradictory function. Consciousness, awareness of awareness. Humanity, a rational, conceptual, intelligent, and self-aware species of individual beings. Rights, what are rights? Do you remember? Conditions of existence necessary for humanity's proper survival. I do have to say number 2 as well here because it's so integral to what rights are. The ability to perform any action provided does not cause imposition. What is imposition? The initiation of force or fraud. Morality, what is morality? It's that code to guide all your actions to prevent retaliation against you. So it's the system to properly survive. That's what morality objectively is. Sure, other people could have different kinds of morality, but they're subjective. This is, when I say morality, I mean objectively. What morality is. Good is good. So they're the definitions we went over, and I integrated all that into a big picture model of how rights are connected to life as the standard of value. Well, the standard, I call that. And then proper survival is the fundamental objective value, which gives meaning to that life. So life is the requirement to have any kind of value to make any sense out of rights. Because rocks don't have rights. Inanimate matter doesn't have rights because it's not living. So there is no action taken to pursue proper survival. There is no happiness. There is no consciousness because it's not alive. So rights are only applicable to intelligent life that is living, right, and is conscious. Well, not just conscious because you have exceptions like being in a coma or drunk. I'm trying to finish this video. I'm trying to wrap up and give you a summary. I hope you enjoyed that. Stick around for the next one, and bye-bye.